Hi there, this is Solitary Owner from Solitary Owner Films, and welcome to another 25 genre favourites video. Today I'm going to talk about 25 of my favourite animation films. Again, many types of animation, as we'll see going through this list. This is films that are, don't have little sections of animation in them. They are all animated all the time. But again, the point of this exercise is so I can see your favourite 25 animated films, or your favourite 10, or however many you want to choose from. I mean, obviously animated films, or cartoons as they used to be called, are now, or have been, a vehicle for, seriousness, as we'll see in some of this list, not just frivolity. It used to be maybe about a decade or so ago that pretty much the best films Hollywood were making were animated films. That's kind of fallen by the wayside in recent years as well. I'm sure at some point they'll get better again. So again, I'm just going to go through my list, but please let me know in the comments some of your favourite animated films. So as usual, I'll be cheating. I might as well start with a cheat. So this is a double. This is Puss in Boots and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Now I really enjoyed these two. I know they have their knockers, but to me Puss in Boots is far more interesting than Shrek. Even though I do have the Shrek films, but the Puss in Boots films are far superior. And Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, I think, is even better than the first Puss in Boots. Because it is actually quite long for an animated film, but it actually is worth it. I can't actually see the runtime on this, but I'm sure it's actually fairly long compared with... it's an hour and 42 minutes, which is fairly long for an American animated film, but it actually works really well. I just like the character of Puss in Boots, played of course by Antonio Banderas. And again, this is a cheat at number 24 because it is two films, slightly different than Puss in Boots. This is from the mind of Yujicha from Japan. This is Violence Voyager and Burning Buddha Man. And again, a completely different animation style, as you can see. I did a double take video of this quite some time ago when I first got it from Third Window. Body horror, very hand-drawn, just beautiful films, even though they're not particularly beautiful subjects, as they have strong violence, gory images, and sexual violence, but well worth checking out if you like something a little bit different and something a little bit strange. At 23, back to Pixar, which again, for a few years we are producing rather good films. Maybe someday they will again. This is Wall-E, which, the first half of the film is almost like a silent film. I will say, I do have this in 4K, but you don't really need Pixar films in 4K because the Blu-rays look really good themselves. But this is a 4K. I did it as an experiment, obviously, and we'll see a similar experiment in a little while. But WALL-E's just quite wonderful, and again looks gorgeous, even though it is about how we're damaging the planet. But that's a little bit too little too late. At number 22, a Western. This is Johnny Depp in Rango, which is available in 4K. As I said, with these kind of films, there's not really too much point in getting 4K, I don't think. Not to these old eyes, anyway. It's a fun little Western that has lots of nods to famous Westerns. Directed by Gore Verbinski, who did the Pirates of the Caribbean films with Depp. It's literally a lizard out of water, and water does feature as a main plot point. It's just a lot of fun. Again, a lovely, pleasant surprise when I saw it for the first time. And then next we're going to go to Deaf Crocodile, one of my favourite Vinegar Syndrome partner labels, even though they've stopped being a Vinegar Syndrome partner label. And this is just, again, a completely different animation style. This is Heroic Times. And again, as you can tell by the slipcover, it is kind of like watercolours come to life. It's an absolutely gorgeous film. As I said, it's like watercolours, but moving watercolours. This is from Hungary. It's absolutely gorgeous. That's Heroic Times. So from Hungary and watercolours, we're at the Lego Batman movie. I remember seeing the Lego movie and being really disappointed. I just didn't think it was that good at all. So I was a little bit dubious about Lego Batman, but you could make the argument it's the greatest Batman film ever made. The relationship between Batman and the Joker is quite wonderful because they actually need each other. It almost borders on the romantic. It's quite moving. Again, this is 104 minutes, so quite long for an animated film, but it actually works really well. And as I said, it might be the greatest Batman film of all time. Number 19, a film that was really surprised me because I wasn't that interested in seeing it, but when I did, I'm glad I did. And that's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is automatically the greatest Spider-Man film of all time. So much so that I got it in 4K. I do have the follow-up one, Across the Spider-Verse, which is really not that good. It's bloated, it's way too long, and it's just there so they can do the third part. Compared to this, which is just bright, breezy, surprising, funny, smart, intelligent. And this sequel, not surprisingly, is bloated and overlong, as quite a lot of sequels are. But this was really surprising. I didn't expect it to be as good as it actually is. Lots of fun with Spider-Man. Disney, you may have heard of them. This is one of their kind of less well known and underrated, and kind of in that turning point between old fashioned Disney and kind of Pixar and modern Disney. It's Treasure Planet, which is a really fun, interesting telling of Treasure Island, strangely enough. Looks wonderful, especially on a big screen. If you've never seen it, it's well worth a wiggle. Number 17, back to the olden days of classic Disney and Fantasia. Classical music, and unfortunately Mickey Mouse. I mean, Mickey Mouse is in it as well. Yeah, just an absolutely beautiful film. Obviously, Night in Bald Mountain is fantastic. At 16, I'm sure this will go to Criterion at some point, because just about all of these other films in Criterion. It's Isle of Dogs, Wes Anderson, probably his most underappreciated film, but because it's got a Japanese feel to it, as it's set in Japan, I am actually surprised that it hasn't went to Criterion, because everything else has. It's just a great little film, and I don't know why it just doesn't get as much love as these other stuff. Lots of wonderful animated dogs. At number 15, again, completely different art style. And this is Kubo and the Two Strings. And this is a 4K steelbook. Because again, this animation looks really good in 4K. Again, a quest story, a road movie, but quite moving and funny. All the fun for all the family. Kubo and the Two Strings. Next, I only realised this actually has a sequel when I was looking up thumbnail images for the video. And this is a beautiful little French film. And this is Ernest and Celestine. This is a plain archive edition. This is a wonderful hand-drawn, again, very much like watercolours, story of the relationship between a bear and a mouse. And the conflict. The bears live above ground and the mice live underground. And just trying to... Why can't everybody just get along? As their friendship is tested by outward forces in a society that just doesn't understand. It's just a beautiful little film. But again, I didn't even realise there's a sequel that came out in 2022, so I'll have to track that down. This is a Region A only plain archive, but it's such a beautiful little film, a kind of film that they just don't make anymore. Again, this is another cheat, but this is How to Train Your Dragon 1, How to Train Your Dragon 2, and How to Train Your Dragon 3, The Hidden World. I just really enjoy these. Again, they look great. Yes, it's about the Vikings and the scrawny loser who doesn't fit in but befriends a dragon, and all of a sudden he's important. It's something we've seen loads and loads of times, but it has a zest. All the different types of dragons make it always interesting. And arguably Gerard Butler's finest performance. Yeah, lots and lots of fun. Next we're back to, and maybe not classic Disney, again another transitional period for Disney. This is The Fox and the Hound. Now I actually saw this in the cinema, and objectively it's not the greatest Disney film of all time, with a relationship between a fox and a hound and how as they grow up it can't really work. It does have one of the most terrifying scenes in a Disney film with the grizzly bear attack, and the big screen. That was quite terrifying. It's one of Kurt Russell's finest performances. Yeah, underrated and underappreciated, I think. Again, that's got a sequel. I've never seen it though. Again, after Disney, something a little bit different. This is Jan Svankmajer's Alice, which uses stop motion. It's disgusting and horrible and dark and weird. and absolutely brilliant. The finest adaptation of Alice in Wonderland ever made. At number 10, it's Up, again on 4K, but you don't really need it in 4K. This is a film that teaches children about horrors of life and how brutal it is. But it's got Doug in it. Doug is the finest dog in cinema history. It includes the short, the backstory of Doug. Doug is, we all want to be like Doug. Yeah, it's just a wonderful, wonderful film. Again, it reminds you of what Pixar used to do really well. But then after that, at number 9, another film that shows you what animation can do, not necessarily for fun and jollification. It's When the Wind Blows. I remember seeing this when I was young. It's quite upsetting. We'll get to an even more upsetting film later. I mean, John Mills and Peggy Ashcroft playing this old couple preparing for nuclear warfare is heartbreaking. It is funny. John Waters and David Bowie did some of the music. It's a wonderful release by BFI. Lots of special features. And a lovely booklet. Just a tragic little film. But again, a reminder that you can hide, not necessarily hide messages in animation, but you can certainly do a lot with animation rather than just entertain. Number 8, we're back to Deaf Crocodile. A film that I had on VHS. That finally got a Blu-ray release after all these years. It's Bill Plympton's The Tune, about a struggling songwriter who only has a few hours to write a bunch of songs for his tyrannical boss, and he ends up in this town called Flubby and meeting all these crazy characters and writing a bunch of songs. It's just an absolute joy. There's different styles of song. Again, it has that Bill Plympton hand-drawn crayon kind of look to it. Also, this release has a bunch of Bill Plympton shorts, which are absolutely wonderful, so I'd highly recommend The Tune. It will put a smile on your face, unlike When the Wind Blows. Again, I'm cheating. Kung Fu Panda, the last film I saw in a cinema. I'm not a huge Jack Black fan, but I do enjoy Kung Fu Panda, basically because they have good villains. You have to have good villains, and they do have really good villains. I haven't seen number 4 yet. I'll wait for it to go down in price before I purchase it. Obviously probably 3's perhaps the weakest, but even 3 has a really good villain. At number 6, another of the same time period of Treasure Planet, where Disney was in a transition as far as the type of animation it would be doing. I think this is a really underrated little film, Atlantis, The Lost Empire. This has a sequel as well, which I've never seen. Wonderful characters, just lots of fun. And again, it's truly an adventure to the hidden world of Atlantis. Next, a film that traumatised me as a child. Probably traumatised quite a lot of children. I still can't listen to the theme tune without weeping like a small child, as I did have a rabbit who obviously has died a lot of years ago, but it still doesn't matter. I can't actually listen to the music. It's obviously Watership Down, but again teaches you about the brutality of nature, which is a complete antithesis of Disney films. obviously we'll get to my number one film, which you can all probably guess about. It doesn't have the brutality of nature in it, but Watership Down certainly does. Great cast, wonderful story, but absolutely horrible. Number 4, we're back to the classics. We're back to 1940, and Pinocchio. Hi Diddly Dee. It's a lovely Mondo steelbook of Pinocchio. You know, Del Toro did a really good job with his interpretation of Pinocchio. Yeah, don't really need to say much about Pinocchio, do you? At number 3, we're back to that strange man Jan Swijemaker for Faust, which is scary and disturbing and creepy and disgusting, but also quite fantastic. Again, stop motion, everything's pretty much in rhyme. Perhaps not quite as dazzling as Alice, but I've loved this since I saw it 35 years ago. It's great to finally get it on DVD. It really needs a Blu-ray. I did a random review of it when I actually got the DVD. At number 2, we're back to Laika Studios, and it's Coraline. Again, this is a 4K Scream Factory or Shout Factory steelbook, with the 4K and the Blu-ray. Again, just a lovely little film. Keith David as the cat. About alternate universes, child snatching, Spider Women. It's all the fun for the family, even though it's quite a bit dark. Yeah, highly enjoyable. Could watch it quite often. And number 1, everybody knows what the number 1 is going to be. It's of course The Jungle Book, which should have ended with Mowgli being disemboweled by Shere Khan, and then like the vultures coming down and pecking out Mowgli's eyeballs, even though they just sang a moving song with him 5 minutes earlier. But that's the way it should have ended. I mean, Mowgli is a fire starter, a twisted fire starter. Shere Khan's just doing what Shere Khan does, you know what I mean? Obviously George Sanders is just fantastic. I did actually see this in the cinema, not in 1967, but I did see it in the cinema later. Yeah, I mean, it's got its knockers, but I've always loved Jungle Book. The remake's not actually that bad. I have that as well. Obviously Christopher Walken as King Louie, is the star of the show. But you can't beat Shere Khan, despite him not getting to feed on the guts of Mowgli at the end, which is very disappointing. And again, as I've said countless times before, when you think Baloo is dead, that is far worse than Bambi's mother being shot off screen. And again, Mowgli leaving his talking animal friends for a wee lassie just because she scrunches up her nose at him. I mean, you've got a talking panther friend, you've got a talking bear friend, you're friends with vultures and wolves, and you trade that in to get a job and pay a mortgage in your hut. I mean, it's ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous. It's the most unbelievable ending in cinema history, I think. Anyway, enough about Mowgli's innards spilling all over the jungle. Animation for all the family. So please let me know what your favourite animated films are. Thanks very much for watching. And hopefully you'll join me again for the next genre favourites video, even though, to be honest, I'm not quite sure what the next one will be. It might be science fiction, another genre that's quite hard to define. Hard hi-fi, hard sci-fi, soft sci-fi. Is it sci-fi? Is it not sci-fi? You'll have to join me to find out. So thanks so much for watching. This is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying farewell.